Hello and welcome to our study of Romeo and Juliet. We are nearing the end of our play. We are in Act 5, Scene 2. If you recall, in the previous scene, Romeo has found out that Juliet is dead, or at least he thinks that Juliet's dead. In reality, Juliet has just taken a potion to make her appear dead, and yet Romeo has not gotten this message, and so he assumes that Juliet is dead and thus devastated. He decides right away to go and take poison of his own to join Juliet in death. Now, we've already talked about how this is really not a smart decision and it's quite a rash decision, but there's something else interesting that I think we should point out. What Shakespeare has done is created a perfect scene of dramatic irony. We, the audience, know that Juliet is not really dead, but in fact, simply sleeping. But Romeo doesn't, and so I always imagine what it must have been like to see this play live at the Globe Theater and have all the people shouting on the stage to the people on the stage, the characters saying, "Hey, don't do it, don't kill yourself, don't get the poison, Juliet's alive, Juliet's alive." And yet the characters on stage would have pretended not to hear anything from the audience. And so as a result, there was probably all this tension that was built up and suspense, and that just makes for great storytelling. It makes us so frustrated. We just want to tell the characters what's going on. And yet they cannot interact with the audience, and therefore this just builds and builds and builds this tension until the audience is just at the edge of their seat. And this is exactly what any great author does. They build suspense for the people who are watching their work. So here we have Friar Lawrence's cell and enter Friar John. We have not seen Friar John yet in this play, but he's about to play a pretty important role in the trajectory of what happens. Let's listen in to learn more.
Friar Lawrence's cell. Enter Friar John.
Holy Franciscan Friar, Brother Ho.
Enter Friar Lawrence.
This same voice be the voice of Friar John, welcome from Mantua. What says Romeo? Or, if his mind be writ, give me his letter.
Going to find a barefoot brother out, one of our order, to associate me, here in the city visiting the sick, and finding him, the searchers of the town, suspecting that we both were in a house where the infectious pestilence did reign, sealed up the doors, and would not let us forth, so that my speed to Mantua was there stayed.
Who bear my letter then to Romeo?
I could not send it. Here it is again. Nor get a messenger to bring it thee, so fearful were they of infection.
Unhappy fortune! By my brotherhood, the letter was not nice, but full of charge of dear import, and the neglecting it may do much danger. Friar John, go hence, get me an iron crow, and bring it straight unto my cell.
Brother, I'll go and bring it thee.
Exit.
Now must I to the monument alone. Within this 3 hours will fair Juliet wake. She will beshrew me much that Romeo hath had no notice of these accidents. But I will write again to Mantua, and keep her at my cell till Romeo come. Poor living corse, closed in a dead man's tomb.
Exit. Scene 3.
Let's talk really quick because this is a really short scene, but something really important is revealed here. We see that Juliet has taken the potion. She's laying in the chamber where she's supposed to, and she's supposed to wake up to Romeo being there. And yet Romeo has not gotten the message from Friar Lawrence. And did you catch why? It says that Friar John was stopped because they suspected that he came from a house where infectious pestilence did reign. And they were fearful of his infection. And so they would not let him in the town. Now you may be wondering, what is the infectious pestilence that they were so fearful of? Well, if you guessed the Black Plague, You are correct. And the crazy thing is, the strategy for dealing with infectious ailments was quarantine. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? We know that Friar John was not allowed into the town because they suspected that he would have been around people with the plague, and they didn't have a very great understanding of science back then, but they knew that they needed to stay away from people who had been exposed to the plague, just like we need to stay away from people who've been exposed to COVID-19. And so they wouldn't let Friar John in to deliver this message. So we know that Romeo has assumed that Juliet is dead for real, even though we, the audience, know that she is just sleeping. So we watch and we see this terrible series of events unfold, and yet there's nothing we can do about it. So let's listen in to scene 3. This is the last scene of the play. And so we're nearing the end of our study here. Let's listen in.
A churchyard. In it, a monument belonging to the Capulets. Enter Paris and his page, bearing flowers and a torch.
Give me thy torch, boy. Hence, and stand aloof. Yet put it out, for I would not be seen. Under yond yew tree, lay thee all along, holding thine ear close to the hollow ground. So shall no foot upon the churchyard tread, being loose, unfirm with digging up of graves. But thou shalt hear it. Whistle then to me, as signal that thou hearest something approach. Give me those flowers. Do as I bid thee, go!
Aside.
I am almost afraid to stand alone here in the churchyard, yet I will adventure.
Retires.
Sweet flower, with flowers thy bridal bed I strew. O woe, thy canopy is dust and stones, with which sweet water nightly will I dew, or wanting that, with tears distilled by moans, the obsequies that I for thee will keep, nightly shall be to strew thy grave and weep.
The page whistles.
The boy gives warning something doth approach. What cursed foot wanders this way tonight, to cross my obsequies and true love's right? What, with a torch? Muffle me, knight, awhile.
Retires.
Let's pause. So arriving on the scene is Paris, and he's going to mourn what would have been his wife, Juliet. He's also devastated, and really this is kind of a sad story for Paris as well, because he is in love with Juliet and never gets to be with her, and so he wants to visit her and leave flowers for her, and he tells his page, hey, listen, go listen out for if anybody comes, and if you hear anything, whistle. Well, the page does whistle, and we can only assume who it's going to be. Well, looking at the text, Dave, we know it's Romeo and Balthazar with the torch and Maddock. Let's listen in.
Enter Romeo and Balthazar with a torch, Maddock, and crowbar.
Give me that mattock and the wrenching iron. Hold, take this letter. Early in the morning see thou deliver it to my lord and father. Give me the light. Upon thy life I charge thee, whate'er thou hearest or seest, stand all aloof and do not interrupt me in my course. Why I descend into this bed of death is partly to behold my lady's face, but chiefly to take thence from her dead finger a precious ring, a ring that I must use in dear employment. Therefore hence be gone. But if thou, jealous, dost return to pry in what I further shall intend to do, by heaven, I will tear thee joint by joint, and strew this hungry churchyard with thy limbs. The time and my intents are savage wild, more fierce and more inexorable far than empty tigers or the roaring sea.
I will be gone, sir, and not trouble you.
so shalt thou show me friendship. Take thou that. Live and be prosperous, and farewell, good fellow.
For all this the same, I'll hide me hereabout. His looks I fear, and his intents I doubt.
All right, Romeo's talking to Balthazar, and he's like, it's nice knowing ya. Here, go on, head out. I'm fine. But if you come bother me, I will become this fierce tiger, and I will strew your limbs all over this churchyard and really fight you. Balthazar's like, okay, sounds good. I'll see you later. And he says, oh, live and be prosperous. I mean, that sounds like, and farewell. I mean, doesn't that sound like an ominous, like something bad's going to happen? And we know something bad's going to happen. And Balthazar's a smart guy. He knows this too. He has an aside where he just says to the audience, no one else. He says, for all this time I'll hide me hereabout. His looks I fear, and his tense and doubt. He doesn't believe Romeo for a second that he thinks Romeo's going to do something, disastrous. And he's right. Let's listen in.
Retires.
Thou detestable Moor, thou womb of death, gorged with the dearest morsel of the earth, thus I enforce thy rotten jaws to open.
Breaking open the door of the monument.
And in despite, I'll cram thee with more food.
That is that banished haughty Montague that murdered my love's cousin, with which grief, it is supposed, the fair creature died. And here is come to do some villainous shame to the dead bodies. I will apprehend him.
Advances.
Stop thy unhallowed toil, vile Montague. Can vengeance be pursued further than death? Condemned villain, I do apprehend thee. Obey and go with me, for thou must die.
I must indeed, and therefore came I hither. Good, gentle youth, tempt not a desperate man. Fly hence and leave me. Think upon these gone. Let them affright thee. I beseech thee, youth, put not another sin upon my head by urging me to fury. Oh, be gone! By heaven, I love thee better than myself, for I come hither armed against myself. Stay not, be gone, live, and hereafter say, a madman's mercy bid thee run away.
I do defy thy conjurations, and apprehend thee for a felon here.
Wilt thou provoke me? Then have at thee, boy.
They fight.
Oh Lord, they fight. I will go call the watch.
Exit.
Oh, I am slain.
Falls.
If thou be merciful, open the tomb. Lay me with Juliet.
Dies.
In faith, I will. Let me
All right, let's listen in. So we see that Romeo and Paris encounter each other, and Romeo thinks, doesn't really know what to think of Paris being there, but Paris assumes that Romeo's there to do something bad to the Capulet bodies. And he says, are you so sick that you can't even let this go? Even in death, you're going to pursue vengeance? That's no bueno. And so we see Paris and Romeo fight, and not only that, they fight, and Romeo kills Paris. Did you catch that? He says, oh, I am slain, falls. And that means he dies. And he says, if thou be merciful, open the tomb and lay me with Juliet. Let her lay me with her. All right, let's listen in to learn more.
bruise this face. Mercutio's kinsman, noble county Paris. What said my man when my betossed soul did not attend him as we rode? I think he told me Paris should have married Juliet. Said he not so? Or did I dream it so? Or am I mad, hearing him talk of Juliet, to think it was so? Oh, give me thy hand, one writ with me in sour misfortune's book. I'll bury thee in a triumphant grave. A grave? Oh no, a lanthorn slaughtered youth. For here lies Juliet, and her beauty makes this vault a feasting presence full of light. Death, lie thou there by a dead man interred.
Laying Paris in the monument.
How oft, when men are at the point of death, have they been merry, which their keepers call a lightning before death. Oh, how may I call this a lightning? Oh, my love, my wife, death that hath sucked the honey of thy breath, hath had no power yet upon thy beauty. Thou art not conquered. Beauty's ensign yet is crimson in thy lips and in thy cheeks, and death's pale flag is not advanced there. Tybalt, liest thou there in thy bloody sheet? Oh, what more favour can I do to thee than with that hand that cut thy youth in twain, to sunder his that was thine enemy? Forgive me, cousin. Ah, dear Juliet, why art thou yet so fair? Shall I believe that unsubstantial death is amorous, and that the lean abhorred monster keeps thee here in dark to be his paramour? For fear of that, I still will stay with thee, and never from this palace of dim night depart again. Here will I remain with worms that are thy chambermaids. Oh, here will I set up my everlasting rest, and shake the yoke of inauspicious stars from this world-wearied flesh. Eyes, look your last. Arms, take your last embrace, and lips, oh, you the doors of breath, seal with a righteous kiss a dateless bargain to engrossing death. Come, bitter conduct, come, unsavoury guide, thou desperate pilot, now at once run on the dashing rocks thy sea-sick weary bar. Here's to my love.
Drinks.
Oh, true apothecary, thy drugs are quick. Thus, with a kiss, I die.
Dies.
Romeo gives this long, really tragic soliloquy, and he dies. And there's so much tension in this particular scene. If you look, he does pull Paris off. Paris says, "Be merciful and lay me next to Juliet." And Romeo does. He pulls him off. And then he looks over Juliet and he says, "Wow, death hath sucked the honey of thy breath, but hath no power yet upon thy beauty. Thou art not conquered. Beauty's ensign yet is crimson on thy lips and in thy cheeks, and death's pale flag is not advanced there." Basically, wow, you look there, you look so beautiful, and your cheeks are rosy and your lips are red. These are signs of life. Oftentimes when someone's depicted as dead, it's like they're kind of this gray-white color, and there's no life or vibrancy in their face. And yet Juliet has this warmth to her face. Well, there's a reason. Her blood is pumping. She's not actually dead. And so he's astonished by the fact that she looks so alive. And can you imagine the stage and the people watching the stage at this point? I mean, the audience would be going wild because he's like, "Wow, you look alive." And we know she's alive. And yet he's about to do this terrible thing, which he does. He says, "Eyes, look your last. Arms, take your last embrace. And lips, oh, you the doors of breath, seal with a righteous kiss." He kisses her, and then he drinks. He says, "Here's to my love," drinks. And then he says, "Oh, true apothecary, thy drugs are quick. Thus with a kiss I die." So he kisses her, drinks it, and he's dead. Just like that. And so we have to look at the what might happen next. And conveniently enough, it says, "Enter at the other end of the churchyard, Friar Lawrence with a lantern, crow, and spade." Just in time to find the dead body. Let's listen in.
Enter at the other end of the churchyard Friar Lawrence with a lantern, crow, and spade.
St. Francis be my speed. How oft tonight have my old feet stumbled at graves. Who there? Who is it that consorts so late the dead?
Here's one, a friend, and one that knows you well.
Bliss be upon you. Tell me, good friend, what torch is yon that vainly lends its light to grubs and eyeless skulls? As I discern, it burneth in the Capel's monument.
It doth so, holy sir, and there's my master, one that you love.
Who is it?
Romeo.
How long hath he been there?
Full half an hour.
Go with me to the vault.
I dare not, sir. My master knows not but I am gone hence, and fearfully did menace me with death if I did stay to look on his intents.
Stay then. I'll go alone. Fear comes upon me. Oh, much I fear some ill unlucky thing.
As I did sleep under this yew tree here, I dreamt my master and another fought, and that my master slew him.
Romeo.
Advances.
Alack, alack! What blood is this which stains the stony entrance of this sepulchre? What mean these masterless and gory swords to lie discolored by this palace of peace?
Enters the monument.
Romeo, oh pale. Who else? What? Paris too? And steeped in blood? Ah, what an unkind hour is guilty of this lamentable chance. The lady stirs.
Juliet wakes and stirs.
Oh, comfortable friar, where is my lord? I do remember well where I should be, and there I am. Where is my Romeo?
Noise within.
I hear some noise. Lady, come from that nest of death, contagion, and unnatural sleep. A greater power than we can contradict hath thwarted our intents. Come, come away. Thy husband in thy bosom there lies dead, and Paris too. Come, I'll dispose of thee among a sisterhood of holy nuns. Stay not to question, for the watch is coming. Come, go, good Juliet.
Noise within.
I dare no longer stay.
Go, get thee hence, for I will not away.
Exit Friar Lawrence.
What's here? A cup closed in my true love's hand. Poison I see hath been his timeless end. O churl, drunk all and left no friendly drop to help me after. I will kiss thy lips. Haply some poison yet doth hang on them to make me die with a restorative.
Kisses him.
Thy lips are warm.
Within.
Lead, boy. Which way?
Yea, noise. Then I'll be brief. O happy dagger.
Snatching Romeo's dagger.
This is thy sheath.
Stabs herself.
There rest, and let me die.
Falls on Romeo's body and dies. Enter watch with the page of Paris.
All right, so Juliet realizes what's happening, and she also decides to kill herself. And how does she do it? There's no poison left, so she does it even in a more gruesome way with a sword. She says, "Here is thy sheath," meaning her body is going to be the sheath that keeps this knife. Oh, happy dagger, and then stabs herself. Also, Friar Lawrence comes and he's like, "Oh, I know Romeo's dead, but we're gonna get you to a sisterhood of holy nuns. You're kind of ruined because both your fiance and your husband lie here dead, and the only thing left for you is basically send you to a nunnery and you can be a nun." And Juliet's like, "Okay, go get thee hence, for I will not away." And so Friar Lawrence leaves to hear who else is coming. Well, if you recall earlier, the page calls the night watch, and so there are some more people coming into the scene. So Juliet's left alone for just a few moments, and in this time, she stabs herself. All right, so enter watch with the page of Paris.
This is the place, there where the torch doth burn.
The ground is bloody. Search about the churchyard. Go, some of you, where you find attached.
Exit some of the watch.
Oh, pitiful sight. here lies the county slain, and Juliet bleeding, warm and newly dead, who here hath lain these 2 days buried. Go, tell the prince, run to the Capulets, raise up the Montagues, some others search.
Exit others of the watch.
We see the ground whereon these woes do lie, but the true ground of all these piteous woes we cannot without circumstance decry.
Re-enter some of the watch with Balthazar.
Here's Romeo's man. We found him in the churchyard.
Hold him in safety till the prince come hither.
Re-enter others of the watch with Friar Lawrence.
Here is a friar that trembles, sighs, and weeps. We took this mattock and this spade from him, as he was coming from this churchyard side.
A great suspicion. Stay the friar too.
Enter prince and attendants.
What misadventure is so early up, that calls our person from our morning's rest?
Enter Capulet, Lady Capulet, and others.
What should it be that they so shriek abroad?
The people in the street cry Romeo, some Juliet, and some Paris, and all run with open outcry toward our monument.
What fear is this which startles in our ears?
Sovereign, here lies the county Paris slain, and Romeo dead, and Juliet dead before, warm and new killed.
Search, seek, and know how this foul murder comes.
Here is a friar, and slaughtered Romeo's man, with instruments upon them fit to open these dead men's tombs.
Oh, heaven! Oh, wife! Look how our daughter bleeds. This dagger hath misstained her. Lo, his house is empty on the back of Montague, and it missheathed in my daughter's bosom.
Oh me, this sight of death is as a bell that warns my old age to a sepulchre.
Enter Montague and others.
Come, Montague, for thou art early up, to see thy son and heir more early down.
Alas, my liege, my wife is dead tonight. Grief of my son's exile hath stopped her breath. What further woe conspires against mine age?
Look, and thou shalt see.
O thou untaught! What manners is in this, to press before thy father to a grave?
Seal up the mouth of outrage for a while, till we can clear these ambiguities, and know their spring, their head, their true descent. And then will I be general of your woes, and lead you even to death. Meantime, forbear, and let mischance be slave to patience. Bring forth the parties of suspicion.
I am the greatest, able to do least, yet most suspected, as the time and place doth make against me, of this direful murder. And here I stand, both to impeach and purge myself condemned, and myself excused.
Then say at once what thou dost know in this.
I will be brief, for my short date of breath is not so long as is a tedious tale. Romeo, there dead, was husband to that Juliet, and she there dead, that Romeo's faithful wife. I married them, and their stolen marriage day was Tybalt's doomsday, whose ultimate death banished the new-made bridegroom from this city, for whom, and not for Tybalt, Juliet pined. You, to remove that siege of grief from her, betrothed, and would have married her perforce to County Paris. Then she comes to me, and with wild looks bid me devise some means to rid her of this second marriage, or in my cell there would she kill herself. Then gave her I, so tutored by my art, a sleeping potion, which so took effect as I intended, for it wrought on her the form of death. Meantime I writ to Romeo that he should hither come as this dire night, to help to take her from her borrowed grave, being the time the potion's force should cease. But he who bore my letter, Friar John, was stayed by accident, and yesternight returned my letter back. Then all alone, at the prefixed hour of her waking, came I to take her from her kindred's vault, meaning to keep her closely at my cell, till I conveniently could send to Romeo. And when I came, some minute ere the time of her waking, Here untimely lay the noble Paris, and true Romeo dead. She awakes, and I entreat her, come forth, and bear this work of heaven with patience. And then a noise did scare me from the tomb, and she too, desperate, would not go with me, but as it seems, did violence on herself. All this I know, and to the marriage her nurse is privy. And if aught in this miscarried by my fault, let my own life be sacrificed, some hour before his time, unto the rigor of severest law.
We still have known thee for a holy man. Where's Romeo's man? What can he say in this?
Let's pause right quick. So Friar Lawrence gives this really long monologue in which he kind of details his whole participation in this story. Which, if you look at it, he kind of, at the end, he says, if I need to be put to death for my participation in this, I understand. And then Prince is like, oh, you're still a holy man. We know you didn't mean harm. I think Friar Lawrence gets off a little bit too easy here because he's the accomplice all along. He could have urged them to be honest and to, do something wise and not get married secretly. And yet he doesn't. As a result, they end up dying. Let's listen in to what Balthazar has to say.
I brought my master news of Juliet's death, and then in post he came from Mantua to this same place, to this same monument. This letter he early bid me give his father, and threatened me with death, going in the vault. I departed not, and left him there.
Give me the letter. I will look on it. Where is the county's page that raised the watch? Sirrah, what made your master in this place?
He came with flowers to strew his lady's grave, and bid me stand aloof, and so I did. Anon comes one with light to ope the tomb, and by my master drew on him. And then I ran away to call the watch.
This letter doth make good the friar's words, their course of love, the tidings of her death. And here he writes, that he did buy a poison of a poor apothecary, and therewithal come to this vault to die, and lie with Juliet. Where be these enemies? Capulet, Montague, see what scourge is laid upon your hate, that heaven finds means to kill your joys with love. And I, for winking at your discords too, have lost a brace of kinsmen. All are punished.
Oh, brother Montague, give me thy hand. This is my daughter's jointure, for no more can I demand.
But I can give thee more, for I will raise her statue in pure gold, that while Verona by that name is known, there shall no figure at such rate be set as that of true and faithful Juliet.
As rich shall Romeo's by his ladies lie, poor sacrifices of our enmity.
A gloomy peace this morning with it brings. The sun for sorrow will not show his head. Go hence, to have more talk of these sad things. Some shall be pardoned and some punished, for never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo.
Exit. End of Act 5. End of Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare.
Alright, so let's discuss the ending. Balthazar also retells his participation in this scene, and Prince basically says, this is so tragic. See what your hate has brought upon your families. You guys are enemies, and because of this, heaven finds means to kill your joys with love. And as a result, Lord Capulet and Lord Montague are just devastated. Capulet says, oh, brother Montague, give me thy hand. This is thy daughter's jointure, for no more can I demand. And Montague says, but I can give thee more. I will raise her statue in pure gold, that while Verona by that name is known, there shall be no figure as such rate be set that is true and faithful Juliet. And so Montague says, guess what? I'm going to make a gold statue of Juliet because she is so precious And Capulet says, I'll do you one better. As rich shall Romeo by his lady lie, poor sacrifices of our enmity. So our children were sacrificed because of our hate. And as a result, we're going to build them golden statues of them together, and we're going to make peace between us now. The sad part is that it took the deaths of their children to make peace between these families. And if they would have just gotten over it earlier, they would still have the two children that mean so much to them. But as a result, Romeo and Juliet have passed. And the last lines here, it says, for never was a story of more woe, more sadness than this of Juliet and her Romeo. And this to me really is a sad story. I'll never forget, I read this in high school, and I kept thinking it was going to be like a trick ending and that Romeo and Juliet really weren't going to die, because I thought, oh, that would just be a bummer. They're not really going to die. And then they did. So it wasn't like a twist ending like I was hoping. Romeo and Juliet really do die. I also remember thinking that, wow, they really are like sweet and in love, and oh, they're so passionate. And now as an adult, I look at this and I think, foolish teenagers rushing into something. They're just lusting after one another. It's not really love. And so it's interesting how my age has kind of changed my perspective on the play. Now, I urge you to think about, were they really truly victims here, or did they bring this on themselves? Is it because of their decisions that they landed themselves in a suicide pact, or is it because of fate that they were fated to have this outcome and ending? You know, we could sit here and argue this for a long time. I have my opinions, but I'm more curious to hear about yours. So feel free to share them in the comments. Feel free to ask any further questions, and I hope you've enjoyed this study of Romeo and Juliet, and I hope it's helped you understand and appreciate Shakespeare just a little bit more. I know he can be challenging, and I know that with practice you can get better with reading it. I also know that if you didn't enjoy Romeo and Juliet, don't give up on Shakespeare just yet. I have a lot of students who read Romeo and Juliet as freshmen, and they go on to read Julius Caesar, they go on to read Hamlet and Macbeth, and they really end up enjoying Shakespeare because all of his plays kind of have a different twist to them. So don't feel like, oh, I didn't really love that, I won't love any other Shakespeare. There's lots of Shakespeare to sample and try and taste. And really, to me, he's one of my favorite things to learn in English class because he's just, he knows the human experience. He can identify all different kind of character types and their motivations and interactions. And really, the people that I see as characters in these plays are the same type of people that I see in my everyday life. We've all known that couple that rushes into love and then break up because of it just a few days later. No one is loved greater than them, and then you see them 2 weeks later and they're broken up and they hate each other more than anybody else has hated anybody ever, right? We all know the person who was meaning well and ended up messing things up anyway, even though they had the best intentions, i.e. Friar Lawrence. We all know the parent that doesn't really listen to their children and give them, a space to talk and share things. We all know that raunchy, older aunt who has always got a quick remark to say that's witty and funny, and who thinks money is more important than anything. She kind of always makes these crude jokes about money and things like that. We all know those people, right? And so Shakespeare is the master of knowing the human condition. He understands how people function and how they interact with each other, their motivations, their reactions. And this is what makes him such a rich storyteller, in my opinion, because he his analysis of how people's behavior is still honestly accurate today. It really is. It's funny because we come so far in our science, we come so far in our our ability to communicate, and yet at the root of things, we still fall in love, we still get jealous, we still get angry, we still harbor grudges for no reason, right? We're still human. And so, though the scenery and the language and the technology has changed, us as humans haven't really evolved too much. we are ultimately human at heart and full of flaws. And Shakespeare is so good at capturing those. As we leave this play, I urge you to think about who is the hero, who is the villain, who is responsible, who is to blame, who's the victim, you know? And thinking about this, I think that you will come to some realizations about our actions and the impacts that they can have on our lives and the lives of others. And ultimately, I think you'll come up with some interesting themes, some life lessons that you can take away from this play. Now remember, theme is not just, the theme is love. It's not a theme topic. It's a statement, a universal message about what this play has to teach you. And I think there's several, as in many stories have several themes. One that we keep talking about all throughout this play is that you shouldn't make rash decisions. It can lead to bad outcomes. There's a perfect example of a theme. But there's more. So I urge you to think about that. What life lessons can we learn from Romeo and Juliet? What are we hopefully going to be able to avoid in our own lives by looking at the mistakes they made in their own? I hope you've enjoyed this study. I hope you tune back into my channel and subscribe so you can hear more explanations of text. And please feel free to leave any questions in the comments. And thank you again. So have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.